How we see ourselves is how the world sees us. And if we want to be seen differently, if we want to show up different, if we want to play a bigger game, then we need to start acting like that person today.
All right. I'm Rebecca Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business.
Hey, it's Rebecca, and welcome back to Resilient by Design. We are in that wonderful, slightly chaotic stretch right before the holidays when the year feels like it is speeding to the finish line. And I know that for so many of you, this is when you finally get a moment to step back and ask, how did my year actually go? And you're thinking, what do I want next year to look like? And you might spend a little bit of time over the holidays thinking about this. So today's episode is the perfect companion for that exploration. I'm going to share with you a goal setting and a year in review workshop that I originally ran live inside my community. I've edited it so that you can hear just my guidance and my coaching, and you can follow along as if you were right there in the room with us. Inside this workshop, we walk through reflecting on your year, celebrating the wins you might have forgotten, looking at your numbers in a simple, non-intimidating way, and getting clear on what you want to repeat and what you're officially done with. And of course, turning all of that into aligned, intentional goals for 2026. And you can absolutely listen while you're driving, wrapping gifts, or preparing for a little holiday break, out for a walk with the dog. But at some point, I do encourage you to grab a notebook and revisit the questions in this episode. This process has shaped some of my biggest years in business, and I hope it brings you the same clarity that it has for me. All right, let's dive in. Your 2026 starts right now. It's the most wonderful time of the year. We're goal setting and reviewing our year. It's the best time of year. Holiday season is upon us. It is here. Thanksgiving just happened south of the border. I'm sure everyone's feeling the festive spirit, or even if you don't celebrate Christmas, you're probably just so ready for a break. I know a lot of us are feeling like, woo, what a year. And that's why I am so excited for today. My hope for today is that you leave feeling really empowered, really excited for the year ahead. I love goal setting. I love reviewing where I've been. I love walking others through that process. So I hope you have pens and paper ready. Let's dive in to the workshop. Today, I'm going to walk you through a review of the year and help you to set the most powerful habits for your year ahead to help you actually achieve your goals. This is similar to the end of year review I did last year, although I have updated it, made some tweaks. So even if you've done this before with me, it's always helpful to have someone walk you through it. It's like I'm going to handhold you today. I'm going to make you do these exercises today in real life. Okay. So if you're like, oh, I'm just going to kind of half listen and do it later, that's fine. But we have the time today for you to just get this done. Remember, it's progress over perfection. It is about just starting and not waiting for the time to make it perfect. Maybe that time that you have reserved over the holidays is the time where you tweak it and fine tune it. Now you've had time to think and process. So can you tell me in the chat, are you committed to doing this work today in our call? Say yes if you are. Yes. Okay, good. I'm getting yes, ma'am. Good. All right, here we go. We're going to walk through these 5 stages today. So first, we're going to reflect and celebrate. We're going to review your numbers. We're going to have you share your goals for 2025 with each other, and then make a plan for success in the year ahead. And lastly, I'm going to have you make a commitment to yourselves. Okay. First, and this is something that I just recorded a podcast episode about as well, which you guys will love. It'll add and supplement what we're doing here today. It's coming out later in December, but you need to look back. Before we can dive into planning our year ahead, it's important that you look back to see where you've come from. There was this quote I saw yesterday, and I thought I wrote it down, but it essentially was like, you can't move forward if you don't look back first, because how do you know where you're going? You need to know where you're coming from before you can really intentionally move forward. And there's so much power. And this is something that I avoided for a few years in my business. I just wanted to set goals. Can anyone else relate? I was just like, I just want to set great goals. I want to achieve them. I'm a futuristic. That's my other Clifton strengths. If you haven't done this test, you guys have to do these Clifton strengths. This Myers-Briggs is number one. The first, my biggest strength is that I'm futuristic. No, I don't dress up in like alien outfits. It just means that I have this amazing ability to see the future, to forecast, and to just constantly be ahead of myself, which is wonderful. But if we can't look back, we're not going to get as far as we want to go. So open up your calendar. And this is going to help you as we move through these exercises today. Open your calendar, whether it's a Google Calendar, a paper calendar, maybe you have like a wall calendar that you put things on that you flip through. Go grab that, come back here, open up another tab, maybe in your desktop if you need to, or on your iPad. I want you to pull up your calendar and start in January, because just trying to remember what happened, you're going to miss things. I want you to use your calendar throughout today. I want you to go back, go week by week in January. What did I do? What did I do? And answer these questions. What was your favorite business experience of 2024? What felt easy? What felt hard? And what was your biggest moneymaker? I just want to remind you, no matter if you crushed your goals this year, or maybe you barely made it through the year, most often we've landed somewhere in between. There are going to be lessons in all of it. And I want to take a big step back before we can move forward. So I want you to spend this time. I'm going to give you 3-4 minutes max right now, just to start to go through your calendar. And I want you to think about all of the experiences that you had this year in your business. And it might be more than one thing. When I did this exercise in Nashville, these were questions that Amy Porterfield asked us when we were at our mastermind in Nashville. I had several things. I think I had 5 or 6 or 7 bullet points here under what were my favorite business experiences. That is okay. You don't have to pick just one. This is going to be the last time we look back. So make it count. Don't worry if you don't have all of the answers. Write what comes to mind and what you can see in your calendar. But these are the important questions I want you to answer before we dive into planning and designing your best year yet. Okay. Now I want you to reflect on, as you've gone through your calendar, what were your big wins? What were your big wins this year in 2024? And hopefully you've got a few. They can be big, but they can also be small. It could be something as simple as I got a client in that neighborhood, or I finally followed my process from start to finish, or I got a brand new mouse for my computer and I've needed that forever, whatever it is for you. Okay. Now what I want you to do is you've looked kind of over your calendar, at least you've started. You've looked at, what felt easy, what felt hard. Along that same vein, what I would love for you to do is take a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle. On the left-hand side, you're going to write repeat. And then on the right-hand side, never repeat. And what I want you to do is to go back through your year and reflect, what do you want to repeat? What felt easy? What felt fun? What made you money that you want to do again, or you just really felt was beneficial? And then what do you never want to do again? Here's an example of when I've done this exercise. So for me, when I looked back on my year, what did I want to do? Family ski weekends. That was incredible. I love doing that. I want to ensure I do more of it. In-person get-togethers, hosting a presentation at our studio, paid consultations, speaking on stages, guesting on podcasts. What did I not want to do? Doing a stage talk without a marketing plan, because they weren't paying me. Too many lunch and learns, people coming to my office showing us their product that I'm never going to use. Designing for friends. My live pop launch during back to school time. Hiring employees without an actual budget in place to pay for their invoices. Drinking too much so that the next day is a write-off. You can put personal things in here too, but these are examples to get you thinking, what do you want to repeat and what do you want to never repeat again? Maybe it's a win, like you were sharing in the chat, or maybe it's something that's come up from reviewing what felt easy, what felt hard. What are you learning about your year? So we've reflected, we've celebrated a little bit the wins. I want to now look at the numbers. So it's one thing to look at, oh, what felt fun, what felt easy, what felt difficult, but what does that look like from a financial standpoint? I know that finances are not everyone's favorite topic. They were never for me. Looking at the numbers has always been laborious. It's been something I've avoided. It's not something that historically I really felt very good at. I've really had to force myself to do it over the years so that I'm now at a place where I feel very comfortable. It wasn't easy. So if you are like, oh God, do we have to do this part? I feel ya, but we're still going to do it. And I'm going to show you just simple areas that you need to focus on. So get your pen and paper ready. I'm going to ask you some questions. Now, you may not have the answer to all of them right now, and that's okay. If you're able to pull up your QuickBooks or something in real time or Design Docs, whatever it is that you use, fantastic. But maybe you just put down some ideas of what you think. The more you can actually get the answer to, the better. And I just want to remind you that it's okay if you don't know the answers. It's okay if you're like, gross, what do you mean? And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But what about the expenses? Like for the longest time, I didn't know my expenses until it was time to file taxes. And my accountant would say, here's how much money you made. These were your expenses. And I was like, oh my God, I spent that much money in my business? Like I wasn't paying attention to it. Don't sweat it if that's you. But this could be your wake-up call that this is something we now need to be tracking and really paying attention to. What was your biggest moneymaker this year? Or was that a hard question to answer? The reason we ask these questions, and you're going to see in a little bit as we move through this, is we want to really understand where we want to focus our energies and our time in the year ahead. Because sometimes we get caught up doing something that turns out it's actually not bringing in a lot of money, and we might need to cut it loose. So these are really great questions to reflect on. And so these are questions that I recognize are kind of heavy lifts. Please take the time before next year to answer these for yourself. These are really important. You really need to know what your revenue is. And I will be honest with you, for the first few years of running my business, I didn't even know what my revenue was. Like gross revenue is like top line, like the money you bring in before you pay out any expenses, before you pay any costs of goods. Like what is the top line that comes into your business? And I never knew this until literally tax time, when my accountant would say, you owe this much in taxes. I was like, that's impossible. How could I owe that much money in taxes? She's like, well, this is your income statement. And so this is something that will help you also set goals for the year ahead if you're able to look at your total sales before the cost of goods or any expenses. And if you don't know that yet, please work with your bookkeeper or dive into it yourself to get the answer. So the next slide, I would like for you to do a deep dive into your numbers. I want you to consider these things: your overall profit margin for the year, the average size of projects. If you were to look at all the projects that you had this year and the total dollar value associated with each project, what is the average? I did this exercise a few years ago and I realized the average project size that we brought in at that time was $150,000 to $200,000. Not my money, right? That's how much they were spending on the goods and the materials and the design fees. So what is your average size of projects? What is your consultation conversion rate? And then which projects were most profitable? So this will require a deeper dive into your numbers and looking through your accounting software if you have one, or just you could do, what's it called? Back of the napkin math, which projects were most profitable. So it may have been a bigger project, but maybe it's a big project. You're doing all the construction implementation, but at the end of the day, are you making as much money as maybe a simple decorating job where you did someone's living room and you did really beautiful high-end furniture, or just a kitchen, or fill in the blank? And I also want you to be tracking, if you haven't done it this year, the average number of hours that you are spending on a project. So if you're tracking your time, whether you're flat fee or hourly, how many hours did you spend on each one of those projects? What is the average? These are questions for you to answer in your own time. What I want to dive into conversion rate, consultation conversion rate. This is essentially what I'm talking about. We want to continue this conversation about setting goals for clients and understanding how many consultations do you need to do in a year to land your ideal number of projects. How we get there is first looking back. So look back at last year. You could do it over a couple of years if you haven't had that much activity this past year. If you haven't ever done a consultation, you can't do this yet, but you will want to be tracking this moving forward. How many projects did you land this year? This is the simple math. Let's say I had 10 projects last year. How many consultations did you have this year? I had 20 consultations this year, or during a period of time. You can pick the period of time. So what's the conversion rate? Well, if I had 20 consultations and 10 of them turned into a job, then my conversion rate would be 50%. So it's number of projects divided by the number of consultations times 100 gives you your conversion rate. What you can do now is you can use this as we move forward to set financial goals for 2025. If you know you want to make a certain amount of money and you know that you want to have 10 jobs, well, you know that you probably need to have at least 20 consultations. And likely you want to have them in the first or second quarter of the year, right? So that you can get those projects started. And this can help to inform your marketing. It's going to help you set some goals. So setting financial goals. So this is something that was taught to me by a coach a long time ago, and it was really impactful. And essentially the idea is that when you look at the different size projects you've had and you figure out, okay, what is the average size project? You might notice a trend. You might notice that, well, I had a few small jobs that were around, $5,000 to $10,000, let's say for a design fee. I've had some medium-sized ones. The design fee was $10,000 to $20,000, and maybe you had some large projects that were $20,000 plus. This is not a benchmark that you have to be following. This was just an example that I did to explain the difference between small and medium. Maybe your small projects are less than 5,000. Great. You'll want to fill in, what that is. Once you think about the financials and you set a financial goal for the year, I want you to look at how many projects do you need to achieve that financial goal, and then work it backwards to figure out how many consultations you need. Now, we just did that part, right? We just did the consultation rate. So we know the conversion rate. We know how to calculate it. So now we know, based on a consultation conversion rate, how many consults we need to have so many projects. But what we haven't talked about is that those two top lines, which is the goal and how many projects. So in simplest terms, if you're going to set a financial goal, you can do one of two things. You can do total project spend, or you could just do interior design fees. It's up to you how you want to do it. I started with interior design fees just because it was smaller and simpler to understand. But if you want to do total spend of a project, we can dive into that. The idea is that whatever the goal is, however you're deciding to set your financial goal for the year, how many projects do you need at what size to get that goal? So this is an example, right? So the average in 2020 for my small projects was about $7,000. So I set a goal in 2021 that I wanted my average small projects to be around $9,000. I'm like, let's bump it. Then medium projects, I would love for the average medium project to go from $12,000 to $15,000. Large projects, you see the same thing. So the goal number of projects that I wanted to get for small ones was 3 of them to bring me at 27,000. 3 of the medium ones would bring me to 45,000. And let's say 4 of the larger ones could bring me to 120,000. So if you add all those up, that is a financial goal of $190,000. What you can do is work backwards. So what is your financial goal? Let's say this is just for design fees for the year. Is it $50,000? Okay, well, let's go backwards. If it's 50,000, how many large projects do I want to have? Do I want to just have 2 big large projects? Is that realistic? And you can play around with this to figure out. And again, this is not guaranteeing you're going to get 3 small projects, 3 medium ones, and 4 large ones, but it helps you to see when you're going into consultations what your goals are for the year. For me, doing this exercise was a game changer because I was then very clear on when somebody called me, getting clear on in the discovery call, pre-qualifying them, understanding what size their project was. And if I was getting too many small projects, I needed to be really intentional because I didn't have the team to support so many small projects. I would rather have a few bigger projects because I don't need to scale my team. So you can play around with how you want to do this, but this gives you a sense because sometimes we also set these goals that are so lofty and we don't actually have any idea of how we can actually achieve them. Right? You're like, I want to make 300,000 next year. It's like, well, what does that look like? Like, is it feasible? Like maybe I did this exercise and then I realized, oh God, like, I don't know if I can get all those projects. Maybe I need to readjust. Again, this is an ideal. It's going to shift, but the idea is like, let's set those financial goals so that you can be intentional with your consultations. And what I would do from here is recommend you set a monthly or quarterly goal. How many consultations I'm going to have a month? So if I need to have, in this case, in this scenario, I need 15 consultations to get that many jobs. Well, if I want to have all those jobs start within 2025, I need those consultations to happen before June, halfway through the year. So let's break that. That's 6 months. So if I take 15, so what if I do, okay, so 15, I could do maybe 2, 4, 6, 8. Do I do like 2 to 3 consultations a month? Or is it 3 to 4 consultations? So that I have a goal so that I can be tracking that. And it doesn't mean that your conversion is going to stay the same. I can tell you when I raised my consultation fee, my conversion rates went from 50% to 85 or 90%. Because I was getting more of the right clients, I was having fewer consultations. I know I'm going quickly through the money side. I want you to take the time that you need to really review your numbers and to set some financial goals for 2025. So the path ahead. We're going to now dive into those goals for 2025. So get your brainstorming hat on. Brainstorm your big ideas. So it could have to do with money. It could have to do with what you didn't want to do. But what would you do in 2025 if you could not fail? What would you do if you could not fail? Please go big. Don't hold back. In the next year, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Here's some examples. Maybe you're like, I'm going to do 3 consultations a month. I'm going to speak on stage at the home show. I'm going to get my first decorating job. Maybe I'm going to eliminate implementation altogether and just focus on decorating. I'm going to hire a full-time designer or admin. I'm going to take a 4-week summer sabbatical. Some of these might sound crazy to you right now. You might have ideas that you're like, oh, I'd love to take December off, but I don't even know in what world that'd be possible. Write it down. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail in your business? Be specific about what these goals are. So as you are thinking and planning for 2025, because if you're not specific, it's hard to measure them, right? How do you know that you've achieved it? If you're just better organized, what's the benchmark for that? The last 2 steps are making a plan for success and committing to them. I'm going to recommend this book. It helps with time blocking. I've talked a lot about this. I believe there's even a training in the portal on time blocking. This has been really, really helpful because being busy is not always the same as being productive. 10x is easier than 2x by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. And in this book, it's actually more towards the end that he talks about this. He talks about this idea of blocking your weeks, blocking your calendar for the year so that you have the time to achieve your goals. The idea is you want to get a time blocking system, because if you have all these big, beautiful ideas, but you don't actually have time to execute or do the follow-up or reach out to the realtor or go to the networking events, then it's not going to happen. And so the idea in his book is he talks about free days, buffer days, and focus days. So free days would be things like vacation, travel, blocking that out in your calendar so that you make sure you have time for vacation with your family, you have time to take that December off if that's one of your goals. And then there's the buffer days, which are the days where you would be doing team meetings, Zoom meetings, client meetings, maybe calendar planning, phone calls, project notes, car, travel, prep for meetings. It's like that busy work for buffer days. And then lastly is the focus days. And this is when you're really going to get shit done, right? And this is when you're creating your art, you're working on design schemes, maybe that's AutoCAD, renderings, creating those internal documents, reviewing your financials, heads down, doing the work. The idea is that these are like-minded tasks. Whole concept behind time blocking your calendar is scheduling chunks of time, 4 hours at minimum, where you are doing a like-minded task. It doesn't mean you need 4 hours to review your books, although sometimes I feel like that's not enough time. But you do want to take that chunk of time where you're not interrupted. You don't have to zip out and pick up a cravat fabric sample, or you're not being called to a job site, or you're not like, oh, now I'm going to I'm volunteering at my kids' field trip for the second half of the day. Like, no, why? If you're volunteering for a half-day field trip, take the other half of the day off. Do other things you need to do. Try to do similar tasks that are using your brain in the same way on the same day. And then we're going to commit. Who do you need to be for all of this to work? Because the future version of you who has achieved that goal, who spoke on stage, who has a well-oiled machines and systems in their business is not the you that is sitting here today. It's you, but it's the future version of you. I want you to consider, how does this future version of you, the person who shows up, who's speaking on stage, the person who's at the networking events, connecting with others, the person who is hosting 3 to 4 consultations a month, what activities does that person engage in? What does that person need to do? How does that person, that version of you, need to show up? When you look ahead to those you admire and the things that they're doing that you want to do, are they living their life a little bit different? Are they waking up a bit earlier? Are they taking time off so they have the balance? And I'm going to encourage you to start today to be her now. And this is something has been my mantra for the last 6 months. I went to a conference in June, and it was all about this idea of your self-image, and how we see ourselves is how the world sees us. And if we want to be seen differently, if we want to show up different, if we want to play a bigger game, then we need to start acting like that person today. And it's going to be different for each and every one of us. But I want you to consider, how do you show up? Do you get to the office in the morning instead of taking extra time to make the coffee? Or do you say, I'm not working on Fridays. That's my me day. What is it? And how can you commit to being her now? What are you going to do different? Because next year is a new opportunity. You can do what you dream of doing. You can't do everything all at once. And so I encourage you over the break to really think about the goals. I'm looking at the goals and the ideas that I set for myself when I was in Nashville. I was like, oh my God, it was so many things. And then I went back through them, and I encourage you to do this. Go back through those big ideas, those opportunities that you were brainstorming, and circle the handful of the ones that are the ones you really want, that are really going to move the needle. Because if you set too many goals, you're probably not going to achieve any of them, because you're going to be spread too thin. I've done this way too many times. I still make that mistake. I'm like, well, maybe I could also learn the guitar. Like, I reviewed my goals that I set for 2024. One of them was learn to play the guitar. Do you know how many guitar lessons I took? 0, big fat frickin' 0. But I accomplished probably 3 or 4 of the 7 to 10 goals I set. And then I thought to myself, if I'd only set 4 to 5, I bet I could have achieved all of them. So be intentional with your goals. I am the first person to dream big and want to do everything, but then you spread yourself thin, you get caught up in the day-to-day, and it's really hard to focus. So this is the process. Reflect on how you did this year, celebrate your wins, review your numbers. So for those of you who don't have those present today, please go and spend some time doing that. I would give yourself the better part of a day. Really, I would. You could dive into so many aspects, like of all the products I resold, which ones had the biggest profit margin? Which vendors did I give the most business to? This is really helpful. Maybe you approach those vendors and say, hey, last year we brought $30,000 worth of business to you. Do you think you could get me a better discount? And then set and share your goals for 2025. Make a plan for success. So block off your calendar, make sure you have the time, and commit to being that future version of you. Okay. This was a lot. Thank you for showing up, not for me, for each other and for yourself. This exercise is for you to better your business, to make 2025 a great year. My most successful years have been when I actually slow down to take the time to really look ahead and plan and really intentionally set some goals. I can tell you this past year, I didn't do a great job last year. I just didn't take the time. I don't know what was going on in my life, but it just wasn't as organized. And I didn't sit down to do the end of year review in as much detail as I've done in the past. And I can tell you, as a result, 2023 felt a little all over the place. I'm not going to lie. I did achieve a few goals, but it wasn't what I had hoped for. And so it was a great reminder to me to take the time now to really set myself up for success for the year ahead. So I hope you guys, and I encourage you to do this too. Have a really great holiday. See you soon. Okay, so let's just take a pause. You just walked through a full year in review and goal setting process, and I hope you feel a little lighter, a little clearer, a little more grounded heading into the holidays. And so here's what you can do next. Set aside 1 more hour focused time before you kickstart your year in 2026. You can do it with a coffee, sit by the fire, but sit down and really finish the work that we started in this episode. And then I would recommend you stick to 3 top goals for 2026. These are going to be the ones that are really going to shift your business forward, and don't set too many goals. And then, of course, if you want accountability, I would love it if you could come on over to Instagram and leave me a DM and share your takeaway. I love hearing from you guys. I know I say this every episode, but far too few of you take me up on this. I really do believe that the end of the year is a reset point. And, whether or not 2025 exceeded your expectations or stretched you as it did me in every direction and in directions you did not expect to be stretched in, it's time to set an intention for 2026 and we can decide how we want to show up. So thank you for spending part of your December with me here and for doing this work that so many of us avoid. Your future self will thank you. I'm wishing you guys a restful holiday season and lots of time to disconnect. And I will see you in the new year.
The Resilient by Design podcast is produced by Vera Marquez, edited by Abby Circatella, and hosted by yours truly, Rebecca Hay.